Hi, I'm Emma, a 20-year-old college student from New York. My family went through some big changes. My parents split when I was 14, and I've been living with my mom since then. Last year, my dad, who I was really close to, passed away from cancer. He left me a lot of money in his will, but I couldn't get it until I turned 20. Well, guess what? I finally hit that age, and soon after, something amazing happened. One day, my stepdad Justin, who's in his mid-30s and has been married to my mom for 6 years, asked for a chat. Our relationship has always been a bit rocky. I try to keep things cool, but he hasn't always been nice to me. He started the conversation with a serious topic. He suggested that I give the money my dad left me to my stepbrother Michael for his college costs. Justin thought Michael needed the money more, and it seemed fair to him that I help out. I was surprised by his request. The thought of giving away my dad's money didn't sit well with me. I tried to tell Justin that this inheritance was meant for me, and it was important to keep it for my future, but Justin didn't understand. He said I didn't need the money and that Michael needed it more. Despite his push, I stuck to my guns. I calmly explained that refusing wasn't disrespecting him. It was about honoring my dad's wishes and keeping my boundaries. Justin got upset and tried to scare me, but I stayed firm in my decision. It was a tough talk, but I knew I had to stand up for what I believed in. I stayed strong, telling Justin that if he was upset with my decision, he might want to rethink his approach. Justin, remember, we're all part of this family, so let's keep things respectful, I said, hoping for a peaceful solution. But it seemed like that wasn't going to happen. I decided to end the conversation there, leaving before he could say anything. Justin's reaction didn't surprise me, given his past actions. I had a feeling he might try to take the inheritance money for himself someday. As for my mom's role, it's complicated. She seems to overlook Justin's flaws, maybe because she loves him so much. I didn't want to upset her by constantly arguing with Justin, so I've tried to keep the peace. It's strange being one of the youngest, but feeling like I have to be the most responsible. During this tough time, my mom Mary was out of town, which meant she couldn't step in to help. If she had been there, she would have been really angry. Justin saw her absence as a chance to push me around, thinking I wouldn't stand up to him. As I walked away from our argument, Justin followed, yelling at me and calling me a bad sister for not giving the inheritance to Michael. But it wasn't about not wanting to help, it was about sticking to what was fair. Justin and Michael seemed to act more like characters from a cartoon than family, with their antics resembling something out of Pinky and the Brain. Even as I tried to move on, Justin wouldn't let it go. He kept insisting I do what he wanted, bringing Michael into it to back him up. Michael joined in, half awake and confused until Justin reminded him why they wanted the money. First, it was for a business, then suddenly it was for Michael's tuition. Their story didn't add up, and it was clear they were just trying to manipulate me into giving up what was rightfully mine. I just woke up, so I'm a bit fuzzy, Michael muttered, trying to make sense of things. Yeah, I need the money for this university I'm considering. His attempt to justify using the inheritance for his education wasn't very convincing. I firmly said no, which led to protests from both him and Justin. Why not, Emma? He's clear about what he needs, Justin insisted, saying they deserve the money. We'll see about that, I replied, feeling the tension rise. Justin's usual antics were harmless, but this attempt to manipulate me out of my inheritance showed a new level of selfishness and immaturity. I decided not to involve my mom just yet, wanting to handle it myself, especially after learning more about their shady intentions. Emma, quit acting like a child. It's time to be mature and do what's right, Justin scolded, insisting that handing over my inheritance was the adult thing to do. His reasoning didn't make sense to me. And what, Justin? The right thing is to give up my inheritance just because you say so. I questioned, his reluctance to involve my mom making me even more suspicious. Why shouldn't I tell her? She deserves to know what's going on in her own home. Justin's urgency to keep my mom out of it, along with his unusually stern tone, only strengthened my determination. Something wasn't adding up, especially with Michael's supposed business venture. It was clear they underestimated my awareness of their tactics, and Justin's insistence on keeping things from my mom raised a big red flag. I got in touch with my mom as soon as I could. Hey Mom, how's everything going? I asked, trying to sense her mood. I'm okay, dear. And you? She replied. I hesitated, knowing what I was about to say might stir things up. Not so good, Mom, I admitted. Something's off with Justin and Michael, especially Justin. He's been acting really weird. Instead of taking my concerns seriously, my mom warned me not to let my imagination run wild. Oh, Emma, don't let yourself get worked up, she said, but it was too late for me to just brush it off. Everything seemed to point to more than just a misunderstanding or me being paranoid. Knowing my mom might struggle to believe what I was about to say about Justin, I persisted, determined to make her see what was really going on. Mom, I understand your feelings for him, but Justin went too far. He didn't just ask for the inheritance money. He demanded it for Michael, saying it was for education. Something feels off, and he even got aggressive when I mentioned bringing it up to you. I explained, my determination growing despite her doubts. My mom hesitated, torn between her emotions and the troubling accusations against the man she cared for. I'm struggling to believe this, Emma. We need more evidence to understand it all, she said. Don't worry, Mom. I'll find the proof, I reassured her, even though she wasn't fully convinced. The thought that Justin might have manipulated her troubled me, but I knew I needed solid evidence to uncover his true intentions. That night, I searched the family computer for clues. Luck was on my side when I found Justin's email account open. What I discovered was shocking. Emails between Justin and a woman named Martha revealed deceit. These messages hinted at an affair and discussed plans for divorce and a future fueled by money from a questionable business venture. Justin might have been careful not to discuss anything illegal, but his betrayal was clear. With this information in hand and a determination to uncover more, I decided to talk to Michael, hoping he might accidentally reveal more about their plans. I started a casual conversation with him, secretly recording our chat on my phone. Hey, Michael, I greeted him, pretending to be cheerful. Hi, Emma, he replied, seeming happy. You seem in a good mood today. Why wouldn't I be? It's a beautiful day, I said, steering the conversation to learn more about Justin's schemes and how they affected my family. Approaching Michael with curiosity, I pretended to consider their request for the inheritance money. I've been thinking about what you and Justin said. I'm actually thinking about giving you the money for college, I said, watching his reaction closely. Really? That's great. I'll tell him right away, Michael said, clearly excited. Not so fast. Before anything happens, I need to be sure. This money is strictly for your college fees, right? I asked, trying to gauge his sincerity. Yes, definitely for my college fees. Michael stuttered a bit, seeming caught off guard by my questions. And you're certain? What about Martha? Is she on board too? I pressed, mentioning the name I found in Justin's emails. Martha? Who's Martha? Michael stumbled, confusion flickering across his face. She's, a college advisor, he quickly improvised, but it was too late. Unbeknownst to us, Justin had entered the room silently, and his presence was imposing. I don't appreciate you interrogating my son like this, he interrupted, his tone stern. I was simply asking about the purpose of my inheritance. If I'm thinking about giving it away, I want to be sure it's for a valid reason, I explained, trying to stay calm. Justin's reply was sharp. Once you hand over the money, it's no longer your concern. It's none of your business. His boldness left me stunned, especially when he followed it with a threat. You're not just considering giving us the money, you will give it to us, or you'll be out of this house. Michael looked as surprised as I felt by his father's sudden aggression. Dad, this isn't what we talked about, he started, only for Justin to interrupt, asserting his authority with a forceful tone, threatening my place in the house if I didn't comply with his demands. Opting for silence, I withdrew to my room, quietly recording the entire confrontation. Justin remained oblivious to the fact that his true character was being documented. Once safely in my room, I began gathering all the evidence against him. It felt like I was a detective in one of those crime dramas, piecing together clues. I had audio recordings and email screenshots, all revealing Justin's deceit and his affair with Martha. As the weight of my discoveries settled on me, I knew it was time to involve my mom. Mom, I began, my voice tinged with urgency. Hey, honey, how are you? She replied, unaware of the storm brewing. Mom, are you sitting down? I need to tell you something important, and it's not easy, I said, preparing her for the revelations. Breaking the news to her was difficult. I started by sharing the unsettling things I had uncovered. At first, she found it hard to believe. But when I played the recording of my conversation with Justin, her denial began to fade, replaced by shock and sadness. Why would he do such things? How could he be so cruel? She asked, her voice trembling with emotion. It's hard to understand, but we're dealing with someone who doesn't have our best interests at heart. I replied gently, trying to offer support despite the painful truth. As much as it hurts, he's not the person we thought he was. Hearing the truth directly from the recording was a turning point for her. This is unacceptable. I can't believe I wasn't here to protect you from them, she declared, determination replacing her initial shock. Stay where you are. I'm coming back right away. And yes, I've locked my door, I assured her. My mom's protective instincts kicked in, and she was ready to confront Justin and ensure he faced the consequences. He's going to regret ever messing with our family, she vowed, her voice filled with resolve. When she arrived, it was a moment of mixed emotions. We embraced tightly, shedding tears over the betrayal and the challenges ahead. But there was also a sense of relief and solidarity. Together, we spent hours plotting our next steps, prepared to face the situation as a united front. In the following days, Justin was puzzled by my mom's sudden return and her icy demeanor toward him. He tried to mask it with false cheerfulness, hoping to charm his way out of suspicion. But my mom saw right through his facade and was gearing up to take decisive action. Worried about Justin's shady business dealings and a potential misuse of the inheritance, my mom decided it was time to bring in some professional help. She hired a private investigator to look into Justin's activities and the mysterious emails. The idea of him planning to misuse the money for unethical reasons made her furious, and she was determined to protect us from his deceit. The private investigator's discoveries confirmed our worst suspicions and revealed more about Justin's scheming. My mom filled me in on the details, and together we prepared for what came next. It was clear that this wasn't just a family disagreement. It was about standing up to manipulation and making sure justice was served. In that moment, there was tension in the air, a mix of disbelief and determination hanging between us. Justin's usual confidence seemed to waver as we confronted him, his eyes darting around as if searching for a way out. You can't possibly understand what you're talking about. This is absurd, Justin attempted to deflect, but his voice lacked its usual confidence. It was evident that the tables had turned and the power he once held so effortlessly was slipping away. Caught in the midst of this family turmoil, Michael glanced from his father to us, his expression a blend of confusion and realization. Perhaps for the first time, he began to see his father for who he truly was, a revelation that seemed to shake him to his core. With a determined gaze fixed on Justin, my mom stepped forward. Not only do we understand, but we have evidence, emails, recordings. You've been planning to launder money through a laundromat, and you're associating yourself with a known criminal. Martha's history speaks volumes, and your intentions for this business are crystal clear. Justin's attempts to maintain innocence were crumbling rapidly. You have no idea what you're getting into. This is my livelihood, my business. You can't just intrude and. But we can, and we will, I interrupted, reinforcing my mom's stance. This isn't solely about your business, Justin. It's about our safety, our lives. You've introduced danger and illegality into our home, and we won't allow you to jeopardize everything for your own selfish motives. The evidence was undeniable. The audio recordings of conversations between Justin and Michael, the emails detailing their plans, and now their admissions made it impossible for Justin to deny any longer. With the camera still recording, every word, denial, and excuse was captured, trying to close in on him with no escape route. You think you're clever, recording this to gather evidence, Justin sneered, his composure slipping further. You might think you've won, but we're not just thinking, Justin. We're certain, my mom interrupted, her tone resolute and unyielding. What you've done is not only morally wrong, but illegal. You've put this family in danger, abused my trust, and now you're going to face the consequences. As the confrontation reached its peak, Michael finally found his voice, barely above a whisper. Dad, how could you? It was a question heavy with betrayal and disillusionment directed at the man he once admired. The room fell silent, the seriousness of the situation sinking in. Justin, stripped of his usual confidence, seemed to shrink in front of us. The game was clearly over. My mom's course of action was clear. Legal proceedings, separation, and ensuring the safety of our family. As we left Justin to face the consequences of his actions, my mom and I knew the journey ahead wouldn't be easy. However, armed with the truth and evidence, we were prepared to confront whatever challenges lay ahead together. The veil of deception had been lifted, revealing a newfound strength and unity between us, ready to rebuild and move forward. I have no idea what you're insinuating. Why not call Martha? Maybe she can clarify things. Justin attempted to deflect, his panic thinly veiled by his tone. You two seem convinced you got it all figured out. Martha is just a friend, he insisted, though his confidence was visibly diminishing. The incriminating photo we discovered suggests otherwise. I countered, my voice steady despite the turmoil within. And honestly, who conducts affairs via email these days? It's incredibly reckless. Justin, now visibly flustered, retorted, you invaded my privacy. That's outrageous. No, Justin, what's truly outrageous is you, my mom interrupted, her voice filled with righteous indignation. How dare you repeatedly threaten my daughter over money that rightfully belongs to her? How dare you use intimidation to try to kick her out of her own home? Your actions are unforgivable. How dare you drag your son into your reckless schemes, putting him in harm's way, and your audacity to plan illegal activities with that money is beyond belief. Now, when it's time to face the consequences, you suddenly go silent, she continued, her words slicing through the tension like a knife. Cornered and desperate, Justin lashed out, get that camera out of my face. As he lunged towards me in blind fury, I swiftly dodged his attack, his aggressive move only underscoring the seriousness of the situation. Now you're thinking of attacking my daughter? Do you have any idea how much trouble you're in? My mom exclaimed, her voice a mixture of disbelief and anger. Defiant to the end, Justin sneered, you think you know what's going on? You know nothing. Well, let's see if the police agree with you. They should be here any minute now, I declared, watching closely for his reaction. Police? You wouldn't dare, he blustered, but his bravado crumbled as the sound of approaching sirens grew louder. Justin's usual smugness vanished, replaced by pure terror. It was the first time I'd witnessed him without his facade, revealing the coward beneath. Save your excuses for the judge, you despicable man. My mom shot back with a disgust that brooked no argument. And Michael, don't think you're exempt from accountability. You both will face the repercussions of your actions. With the police arriving, it was evident that this signaled the beginning of the end for Justin's schemes. My mom's resolute declaration hung in the air, marking a significant moment of justice for us. This should serve as a lesson about disrespecting my daughter and me. You're old enough to know right from wrong, and it's time to face the music, my mom asserted, her tone unwavering yet fair. Yes, Mom, I understand, I acknowledged, recognizing that I had overstepped and needed to confront the consequences of my actions. Come on, Grace, don't you think this is a bit extreme? Justin attempted to argue, hoping for some leniency. Quite the opposite. This is just the tip of the iceberg, my mom countered firmly. Emma, how's our live stream going? My mom asked, adding a modern twist to ensuring transparency and justice. We've got over 5,000 viewers tuning in. This is making waves, I informed her, astonished at the digital audience we had attracted. Just to be crystal clear, my mom turned to Justin, her voice steady, I want a divorce. That's right, folks, she declared, ensuring the livestream captured every word. The aftermath of the livestream was seismic. Over 5,000 witnesses watched as the drama unfolded in real time, and the story quickly spread to local newspapers and tabloids. Being at the epicenter of this whirlwind felt surreal, witnessing the swift downfall of Justin, my soon-to-be ex-stepfather, and his accomplice, Michael. The sense of satisfaction from seeing justice prevail was tangible. Justin's life crumbled as he lost his job, friends, and even some family members who chose to distance themselves. With serious charges looming, Justin faced the prospect of up to 22 years behind bars if found guilty. Meanwhile, Martha, his partner in crime, was also apprehended by the police after trying to lay low during the scandal. She too faced uncertain prospects ahead. Despite the chaos, my mom and I found solace in each other. Our bond strengthened as we weathered the storm together, emerging resilient on the other side. Weekends became moments of relaxation on the patio, sipping drinks and reflecting on the absurdity and malevolence of Justin's actions. It was a time of healing and reaffirmation for both of us. Good riddance. We toasted, sharing a sentiment of relief and closure. Indeed, good riddance. Surely Mom and Dad would prefer to live with me rather than you, Emma, my pregnant sister-in-law Karen declared, affectionately cradling her belly. After all, you can even give them grandkids. Since we're moving here, it's only fair that you and your husband find a new place. I responded with a simple, okay, although Karen seemed quite content with my quick acquiescence. Deep down, I felt a sense of relief at the prospect of finally breaking free from our strained relationship. My name is Emma, and I've been married to Scott. Together, we've been grappling with the challenges of infertility. Having spent years working as a child care worker, my love for children ran deep within me. So when I discovered that conceiving was proving difficult after marrying Scott, it shook me to my core. I even confided in Scott, expressing my fear that he might regret marrying me, considering our struggle. With his gentle demeanor, Scott reassured me, saying, I didn't marry you for children. I married you because I love you. Whatever challenges we face, we'll face them together. His words resonated with me, and we embarked on the journey of fertility treatments hand in hand. Reflecting on it now, I realize how fortunate I am to have such an exceptional husband by my side. Initially, I attempted to juggle fertility treatments with my job, but the demands of shift work made it increasingly challenging. As the treatments progressed, my emotions became more fragile, often leading to tears at the sight of children, a stark reminder of my own uncertain path to motherhood. Recognizing the strain it placed on both myself and my colleagues, and recalling Scott's suggestion that I could explore being a stay-at-home wife, I made the difficult decision to resign from my job. Now, amidst fertility treatments, I embrace the role of a full-time homemaker. Karen, Scott's younger sister, who was expecting her 5th child, learned of our struggles. Despite the sensitivity of my situation, Karen would visit with her 4 children in tow, oblivious to the emotional toll it sometimes took on me. With a casual tone, she'd remark, Emma, you're at home now, aren't you? Why not lend me a hand with the kids? You used to work in childcare, didn't you? Take care of them for me, will you? And with that, she'd leave her children in my care to indulge in her beauty treatments and manicures. Whenever I mentioned that it wasn't appropriate for me to babysit, Karen would dismissively retort, in a society where people aren't having enough children, isn't someone like me, who's raising kids, more admirable? You who can't even have children should just do as I say. It was frustrating to care for someone else's children without compensation, even if she was my sister-in-law. Despite her abrasive demeanor, I couldn't ignore the longing in her children's eyes for their mother's presence. Each time they asked when she returned, it tugged at my heartstrings. I wondered the same thing myself. Naturally, I shared my concerns with Scott, including how Karen was leaving her children with me while she indulged in her beauty treatments. Scott, seething with anger, confronted Karen over the phone, only to be met with dismissiveness. Emma should be thrilled to be around kids since she can't have any of her own, Karen retorted. After all, she used to work with children, so what's the big deal? Scott, undeterred, approached Karen's husband Rob, hoping for some understanding. However, Rob echoed Karen's sentiments, insisting that our assistance was necessary. Our kids seem to enjoy Emma's company, and it's a big help to us, Rob stated. Once Emma gets pregnant, we won't impose on her anymore. But until then, we'd appreciate her support. Karen is exhausted from caring for the children, and as a homemaker, Emma should be able to pitch in. Scott had assured me that if Karen ever showed up uninvited, I had full authority to send her packing. However, her 4 children had a habit of darting straight to the back room without so much as a hello the moment they entered our home. Karen, in her usual fashion, would simply declare, well then, you're in charge today, before hastily departing, leaving her kids behind before I could voice any objections. One day, Karen broke her usual routine by unexpectedly stepping inside our house. Typically, she dropped off her children and swiftly left, so I was taken aback when she inquired, when are you moving to the new house? Have you picked out any designs or anything? Scott and I were in the process of constructing a new duplex to reside with his parents. With the house nearing completion, we were preparing for the imminent move. Despite being aware of my struggles with infertility, my in-laws had never uttered a single disparaging remark. My mother-in-law, in particular, had been a source of immense support, once reassuring me, there are countless happy families out there without children. It was a sentiment that had been a lifeline for me. Now, As my in-laws grew older and began to experience various ailments, we realized the importance of living together before they required full-time care. Hence, Scott made the decision to build the duplex. It was a rare occasion when Karen showed genuine interest in the duplex, so I eagerly shared the anticipated images and blueprints with her. Though Karen seldom visited her parents' house, the prospect of the home they would soon occupy seemed to capture her attention. She probed about the number of rooms and the amount of sunlight the house received, to which I assured her there were no concerns. When queried about our moving date, Karen simply responded with a curt, "I see," before abruptly departing, leaving her children behind. A sense of unease lingered within me, but at the time, I brushed it off. Eventually, the decision was made for us to move into the two-family home. Shortly thereafter, my in-laws settled in, and our life together with Scott's parents commenced seamlessly. Living under one roof proved to be harmonious, and we felt truly fortunate to have such kind-hearted in-laws. Then, unexpectedly, Karen made an unannounced visit one day, accompanied by her 4 children. Without so much as a glance at her kids, she turned to me and uttered, "Hey Emma, we need to talk." As my in-laws, who hadn't seen their grandchildren in quite some time, were being overwhelmed with attention, I found myself abruptly escorted out to the hallway. Amidst my concerns about whether my in-laws, who had been lamenting their recent back problems, could manage the energetic kids, Karen dropped a bombshell. "Hey, why don't you and Scott vacate this house?" I was caught off guard by her unexpected words, but Karen forged ahead, seemingly unconcerned with my reaction. "Undoubtedly, Mom and Dad would prefer to reside with me rather than with you, incapable of granting them grandchildren. After all, I'm their true daughter, bound by blood," Karen declared haughtily, her hand caressing her burgeoning belly. It was evident that Karen's scheme involved moving in with my in-laws and relying on them for childcare. "See how thrilled Mom and Dad are to dote on their grandchildren," Karen remarked, gesturing towards my struggling in-laws who were attempting to manage their lively brood of grandkids. Despite my futile attempts to reason with Karen, her determination remained unyielding. Each passing moment only fueled my simmering resentment towards her for ridiculing my infertility and imposing her children on my compassionate in-laws. After much contemplation, a solution dawned on me, and with a resigned nod, I uttered, "Fine, we'll find another place." Karen eagerly set the timeline for our departure and their subsequent occupancy, leaving her children behind once more. Yet amidst the chaos, I found a sense of relief, viewing this as an opportunity to sever ties with Karen. As time elapsed, the day arrived for Karen's family to move into the duplex that Scott had painstakingly built. Wondering if the transition had been smooth, my phone suddenly rang. It was Karen. As I picked up the phone, Karen's voice pierced through with an edge of fury. "What on earth is going on? Why hasn't your stuff been cleared out yet? There's no space for our belongings. And where are Mom and Dad supposed to go?" Scott, his parents, and I had vacated the two-family residence, but some furniture remained behind. Karen's agitation was palpable, prompting my reply, "The decision was sudden, so we've only partially moved out for now. Your parents are staying with us." "Unbelievable." Karen's retort came swift and sharp. "I find it outrageous that you and your husband have taken it upon yourselves to move into the house Scott built without consulting us. It's equally outrageous to offload the kids onto us and gallivant around town, despite our repeated warnings about the challenges of caring for them." "That's beside the point for now. Can I just dispose of any remaining furniture that I don't care for?" Karen inquired impatiently. "If you're truly intending to move in, feel free to do so. But are you absolutely certain about this?" I questioned, a hint of skepticism lacing my words. "What do you mean?" Karen snapped irritably. It was then that I dropped the bombshell. "Can you and your husband manage the mortgage for that house? It's a substantial investment, given it's a two-family home." By that juncture, I had already spun a web of lies. Even my apparent agreement to their moving in was fabricated. There was no way I could entertain Karen's notion of seizing control over the duplex that my husband Scott had painstakingly constructed. It's only natural that the furniture remains, considering Scott, his parents, and I are currently enjoying a vacation at Yellowstone National Park. In reality, the house had been entirely paid for with the combined savings of Scott, myself, and his parents. There was no mortgage to speak of, but the fabrication served its purpose in rattling Karen. Scott and his parents were in on the plan. When Karen demanded to speak with Scott, he adopted a mischievous grin and echoed my deception, claiming there was still a mortgage. Upon hearing this over the phone, Karen reportedly broke down in tears, unable to fathom the financial strain. She ultimately chose to retreat to her previous residence with her husband, Rob, and their children, after Scott assured her she could still withdraw and that we were also returning home. Upon our return home, narrowly averting Karen's attempted takeover, she wasted no time in launching into a tirade. "You never disclosed there was still a mortgage. Why keep us in the dark?" Karen's voice reverberated with anger as she directed her accusations at us. With a nonchalant shrug, I retorted, "Because you never inquired," causing Karen's face to flush an even deeper shade of red. The children were thrilled at the thought of this becoming our home. "You shattered their dreams as well. Maybe your inability to conceive is punishment for your negligence. You owe it to them to properly care for the kids. Even if it's just playing with them, it's better than doing nothing." Karen's words stung with venom. Listening to Karen's venomous tirade, my typically reserved mother-in-law rose from her seat and delivered a resounding slap across Karen's cheek. Taken aback by my typically serene mother-in-law's unexpected outburst, she turned her attention to Karen with a cutting edge in her tone. "You can't even handle the simple task of playing with the kids? Were you planning to move into this duplex just to unload your childcare responsibilities onto us? I was willing to lend a hand if you were struggling to raise your children alone, but who would want to assist a daughter who shirks her parenting duties and acts entitled? Leave this house immediately and never return." A note of desperation crept into Karen's voice as she protested. "Aren't you on my side, Mom? I'm your real daughter, aren't I?" In response to Karen's tearful plea, my usually reserved father-in-law found his tone heavy with disappointment. "It's precisely because you're a real daughter that your behavior is so disgraceful. I feel remorseful for raising such a self-centered daughter. Scott has informed me of your cruel remarks towards Emma regarding her struggles with infertility. That's an unforgivable act." Karen's glare intensified towards me, but I couldn't help but feel a twinge of pity for her, knowing she would be facing her struggles alone from now on. With a solemn expression, I opened the front door for her. "As both your mother and father have stated, it's time for you to leave. I won't be assisting with childcare any longer, so please take responsibility for your own." "You're all heartless monsters," Karen lashed out before departing the house in tears. From that moment on, she never crossed the threshold of our home again. When Karen arrived at our house, Scott was away at work. Later, he received a call from her, but her words were barely intelligible through her uncontrollable sobs. It became apparent that her family was facing dire financial troubles. Karen had been indulging in beauty treatments and manicures, while Rob had been squandering money on lottery tickets. With their savings dwindling, Karen saw moving into the duplex Scott had built as a solution to avoid paying rent and utilities. When she turned to Scott, who earned significantly more than the average income, for financial assistance, he couldn't overlook her past mockery of my infertility. Scott advised Karen to cut back on beauty treatments and lottery tickets as a solution, but she tearfully refused. He couldn't bring himself to financially assist such an arrogant individual, even if she was his blood relative. As their financial situation worsened, Rob had to resort to taking a second job to cover their expenses after exhausting their funds on lottery tickets. Similarly, Karen had to forgo her regular beauty treatments due to a lack of funds. Once polished and composed, Karen was now almost unrecognizable after months of financial strain. It was only when Scott pointed her out that I realized it was indeed Karen. Yet, despite Karen's challenges, her children remained vibrant and content in her care, which was a relief. And then, a miraculous twist occurred. I discovered that I was pregnant with twins. However, even amidst the joyous news, tears welled in my eyes when the doctor confirmed it. Scott, by my side, also shed tears of happiness as we shared in the overwhelming emotion. My in-laws were equally ecstatic, finally seeing the realization of our long-held dream for a child. Though I hadn't voiced it to Scott, I couldn't help but wonder if the release from the stress caused by Karen had played a part in my pregnancy. Reflecting on the unwavering support of Scott and my in-laws, who chose to stand by me rather than Karen, fills me with immense gratitude. It's because of their unwavering support that I've been blessed with two precious lives. Now, all I can do is hope fervently that the babies growing within me will be born healthy. Karen's father is quite wealthy, isn't he? Yes, when he passes, Karen's set to inherit a significant fortune. I reckon it could be around 100 million. Incredible. I can hardly wait. Once that happens, I'm hoping Karen might whisk me away on a luxurious vacation. Sounds delightful. Maybe I'll put in a request for a new car. James, what about you? Well, I've had my eye on a top-of-the-line gaming rig for ages. I wonder if I could subtly suggest it to her. Their conversation bubbled with excitement, oblivious to the solemn expression on my face just outside the door. I clutched my purse tightly. My name is Karen, and I first met my husband James at a bustling social club for professionals. Our shared interests sparked an instant connection, and we've been happily enjoying life together ever since. One day, my routine was disrupted by an unexpected call from my mother. Karen, your father has collapsed. What? My father, known for his jovial spirit and love for dad jokes, was the picture of health. He ran his own company with ease, making the idea of his collapse incomprehensible. Concerned for my father, I immediately left home and caught the next train to the hospital my mother had mentioned. My father was truly a gentle soul. Despite his busy schedule, he always made time for my brother and me, lifting us onto his shoulders and playing with us. I vividly recall his tears of joy as I read a letter to my parents at my wedding to James. The memory was etched in my mind. The thought of such a man falling ill was heart-wrenching. Refusing to accept the news, I hurried to the hospital where my mother sat by my father's side. As soon as I entered, my mother turned to me. Mom, how's Dad? Is he okay? Karen, please let's stay calm and I'll explain. Facing my father lying on the bed, his eyes closed, my mother detailed his condition. He had collapsed suddenly at work, prompting an urgent trip to the hospital. Despite numerous tests, no clear cause for his illness emerged. Further examinations might yield answers, but they also posed risks to his already fragile state. Consequently, my mother had opted to halt the tests. It appears your father may experience paralysis on the left side of his body. So, he'll need ongoing care. Yes, that's correct. Despite the weight of the news, my mother maintained a composed demeanor as she spoke. My mother had already resigned herself to caring for my dad. Contemplating this, I sensed my mother's resilience, yet I was also consumed by sadness at the prospect of my father's changed state. Struggling to contain my emotions, my brother burst into the room. How's Dad? He asked, breathless. My mother repeated the details of my father's condition to him as she had to me. Mom, you can't do this alone. I'm nearby. I'll come help. Thank you, but you need to prioritize your own life. You have your own family now. My brother, understanding, nodded. I understand. My brother had married years before I did and now has a 4-year-old daughter. The one with more flexibility in their schedule is me, the one without children. However, it would still take me an hour by train to reach our childhood home. I might be distant and it could take some time, but I won't leave all of this burden on you and Mom. If there's any change with Dad, don't hesitate to inform me. Agreed, but Karen, did you inform John before coming here? I suddenly realized I'd left home in a hurry without informing John. Seeing my expression, my brother added, be sure to reach out to him. He must be anxious. Leaving the hospital room swiftly, I found a quiet spot to call John. As soon as he answered, he asked, Karen, where are you? I'd been worried sick. Hearing John's voice offered some comfort, yet tears welled up as I explained that my father had collapsed and would require care. Your lively dad. John's shock was palpable, yet his gentle words offered solace. Grateful for marrying him, I informed him on my return home. His gentle response was, I'll prepare dinner. Take care on your way back. With my father set to spend the night in the hospital, and my mother and brother returning home, I opted to head back as well. Arriving home, I found John had prepared my favorite meal. It must have been rough. Have something you love to lift your spirits, he said, pulling out a chair for me. His kindness moved me to tears. While John typically remains composed, his warmth during my lowest moments always touches me deeply. Thanking him for his support, I retired to bed early that evening. The following morning, feeling a bit more composed, I approached John with the idea of assisting in my father's care occasionally. He readily agreed. It turned out that John had already informed his parents about my father's condition, and they offered their assistance with household chores during my absences. I was pleasantly surprised by the full support extended by John's family. When I called to express my gratitude, John's mother chuckled and reassured me, your father is like family to us. Don't worry about a thing. John's parents, much like him, typically exude composure. Their arrival at our home with smiles and offers of help with chores left me momentarily stunned, a gesture of familial warmth I hadn't experienced before my marriage. Initially, I had perceived my in-laws as somewhat distant, but perhaps I had misunderstood. I made sure to express my heartfelt gratitude to James and my in-laws for their unwavering support in caring for my father. Once a lively conversationalist, my father's ability to speak fluently was hindered by the paralysis on his left side. Yet there was a glimmer of hope in his right-handedness. Using a whiteboard, he conveyed his needs and shared his signature dad jokes through crude drawings and written messages, lifting our spirits despite his near-constant confinement to bed. While my brother offered assistance, it was predominantly my sister-in-law who took on the caregiving role. With her background in caregiving, she patiently and kindly instructed both my mother and me on how best to aid my father. My mother, and I harbored concerns that my sister-in-law might balk at caring for my father, who wasn't related by blood. However, to our relief, she welcomed the responsibility with open arms. Her cheerful declaration, "Your father has brought me so much joy. Now it's my turn to bring him happiness," illuminated her kind nature, reaffirming my belief that my brother had chosen a remarkable partner. While my brother may have found an exceptional spouse, I found solace in knowing that my own spouse was equally supportive. My entire in-law family rallied behind me in my caregiving efforts, always inquiring about my father's well-being whenever I visited to assist him. Their genuine concern never failed to touch my heart. Yet I couldn't shake the feeling that perhaps I had misjudged them. One day, as I left home to tend to my father, I realized I had forgotten my wallet upon reaching the station. Frustrated with my own absent-mindedness, I returned home. On days when I went to care for my father, my in-laws would often lend a hand with household chores, so I anticipated they might find my blunder amusing. As I re-entered the house to retrieve my wallet, I overheard a conversation between James and my in-laws in the living room. "Are we certain Karen's father isn't about to kick the bucket? I'm tired of this waiting game." "Huh?" Pausing mid-step, I questioned whether my ears deceived me. Leaning closer to the living room door, I caught their conversation with clarity. "Speaking of which, how much does Karen stand to inherit once her father bites the dust? We've been playing nice, but it only makes sense if we're getting a hefty chunk. Her old man's loaded, you know. When he croaks, she's set to rake in a fortune. I bet it's over 100 mil, right? Geez, that's insane. I'm counting down the days. Once her old man kicks it, I'm hoping she'll whisk me off on a vacation." "That sounds lovely. Maybe I'll put in a request for a car." "James, what about you?" "You know, I've been eyeing the top of the line gaming rig for ages. I'm wondering if I can drop a hint for Karen to get me one." Their conversation bubbled with excitement, unaware of the storm raging behind the door. I clutched my wallet tightly, channeling all my emotions into that grip. Anger, frustration, and sadness churned within me, a turbulent whirlpool of thoughts and feelings. Careful not to disturb James and his family in the living room, I slipped out of the house, my mind still reeling. Their sudden kindness felt suspicious, tinged with the scent of greed. My father's inheritance loomed large, a tempting prize for those with less than honorable intentions. But I couldn't bear to entertain the notion that my in-laws were eagerly awaiting his demise. Lost in my turmoil, I found myself sitting on a bench at the local station near my parents' home, the echoes of James and his family's laughter haunting my thoughts. "I won't forgive them. Never," I muttered under my breath, seething with anger. I vowed to exact revenge on James and his conniving family who valued my father, the man who raised me with love, solely for his wealth. Pretending ignorance of their callous conversation, I played along, maintaining my usual polite facade and expressing gratitude for their concern about my father's health. Determined to turn the tables, I resolved to exploit James and my avaricious in-laws for all they were worth. I extended my visits. I dedicated myself to caring for my father while unceremoniously delegating household chores to my in-laws. My money-hungry in-laws readily complied with any requests I made. I noticed the subtle tightening of their faces and James' expression at times, but I paid it no mind. A year passed, and my father's condition deteriorated further. Though the doctor assured me it wasn't urgent, I couldn't shake off a sense of relief. However, when I shared the news of my father's declining health with James and my in-laws, their barely concealed grins betrayed their true intentions. It was the moment they had been waiting for. With resolve, I handed them the divorce papers. "Thank you for all your assistance. Please let's part ways." As I made my declaration, James and my in-laws were stunned into silence, but I remained composed as I delivered my prepared speech. So, James, mother-in-law, father-in-law, it's clear you were eyeing my father's inheritance, weren't you? I heard everything. Mother-in-law dreaming of vacations, father-in-law longing for a new car, and James craving that gaming computer. Am I right? I can't stay with people eagerly anticipating my father's demise. The expressions you wore just now were repulsive. It was as if I could see straight through to your crass desires for money upon my father's passing. My words seemed to strike fear into them, their faces frozen in shock. My in-laws remained motionless, while James, clutching the divorce papers, was at a loss for words, his mouth opening and closing in disbelief. It was clear I had no place in this household any longer. You can send the divorce papers by mail, but if you don't, I'll hire a lawyer. Please ensure it's done within a week, I informed James, my voice steady. After collecting the luggage I had prepared earlier, I exited our home. As the train gently rocked me on my journey back to my parents' house, I felt a sense of calm envelop me. Upon my arrival, my parents greeted me warmly. Having confided in my mother about the situation, she enveloped me in a comforting embrace, offering words of encouragement. It was a moment of vulnerability I hadn't experienced since I'd become an adult. The following day, James and my in-laws arrived at my parents' home. Choosing to remain hidden, I observed from afar. When my mother opened the front door, I watched as James and my in-laws knelt before her. We apologize. We want to apologize to Karen. It seems there's been a misunderstanding. Please allow us to apologize to her properly, they pleaded. Misunderstanding. My daughter overheard your conversation. It seems you've been eyeing my husband's inheritance. I don't want any association with people like that, my mother declared, her tone sharp and final. Despite her dismissal, James persisted, pleading to see me. I can't allow it. Karen doesn't want to see you. She doesn't seek apologies. She wants those divorce papers filled out. Have you done it? Hand them over, my mother demanded. Please, just one more chance, James pleaded, desperation creeping into his voice. As James cried out, the sound of a cane tapping echoed from within the house. Turning to look, I saw my father, leaning on his cane with my sister-in-law's support. Father-in-law? James's mouth fell open at the sight of my father, whom he had only heard about. Holding up a whiteboard, my father conveyed a powerful message. I won't surrender my daughter to someone who can't bring her happiness. Grant her wish and proceed with the divorce. The message, penned with resolve, seemed to strike a chord with James and my in-laws more than any other words spoken. It was evident they realized further debate was futile. Slowly, James rose to his feet, followed by my in-laws. I've completed the divorce papers. Here they are, James announced, handing the documents to my mother. He assured her he would inform me once he had filed them with the city hall. With that, my mother bid them farewell. Emerging from my hiding place, I expressed my gratitude. Thank you, Mom and Dad. My mother responded with a gentle smile, while my father let out a hearty laugh and wrote a message on the whiteboard. A father's duty is to protect his daughter until the end. Reading those words on the whiteboard, tears welled up in my eyes. Despite the paralysis on his left side, my father's kindness and love remained unchanged. I had mistakenly believed that he was no longer the father I knew, but it couldn't have been more wrong. He was still the same dependable father who always prioritized my well-being. Dad, I wish for you to live a long, happy life, I whispered, my voice choked with emotion. With tears streaming down my face, I expressed my wish to him, and he responded with a beaming grin. Since then, James has returned to his parents' home, seemingly leading a quiet life with them. As for me, I've adapted to the routine of caring for my father while juggling work commitments. It's a hectic life, but I remember how my father always made time to play with my brother and me when we were young. With that memory in mind, neither my brother nor I feel burdened by caring for him, no matter how busy we become. Despite being partially bedridden and having lost weight, my father's spirit remains unchanged. His infectious laughter and love for dad jokes continue to brighten our days. My sister-in-law often remarks how caring for my playful father brings her joy, allowing us to maintain a peaceful existence.